Is LSU center Braelin Moore on track to play against Florida? We've got the latest. It's Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We're free, available wherever you get great podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe as always. One of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you sincerely for that. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. So LSU and Florida inching closer to a massive showdown in Death Valley on Saturday night. Tigers and Gators. Both Brian Kelly and Billy Napier met with reporters via the SEC coaches teleconference on Wednesday. And for Brian Kelly, there was really just one gigantic question, and it was updates on Braelin Moore and Trades Green. Now, no update on Green. The sprained MCL, as we reported at LouisianaSports.net on Sunday morning, which is still consistently been true here. Sprained MCL. They do expect he will miss time. I do not expect Trades Green to play this weekend against Florida. And if you don't play against Florida, it's unlikely and unnecessary to bring him back against Southeastern Louisiana. So give him those full 2 weeks, two games, 3 weeks from injury to the Ole Miss game and really target that. And I have said the exact same about Braelin Moore. The high ankle sprain, which Brian Kelly downplayed a little bit on Monday, but what we were told was that similar to Trades Green, would be unlikely that Braelin Moore would play this week against Florida. And if you don't play him against Florida, there's really no reason to bring him back against Southeastern Louisiana. So target Ole Miss, where you have a closer to 100% starting center in Braelin Moore, who is your best offensive lineman and a critical piece to this entire offensive unit. Well, Brian Kelly Wednesday on the SEC coaches teleconference was singing a little bit of a different tune, talking about Braelin Moore.
I think we have him listed as probable. He did practice yesterday, and we expect him to practice today.
So Braelin Moore, probable for LSU on Saturday against the University of Florida. Now, I can confirm through sources that Braelin Moore did practice on Wednesday. So Brian Kelly said those comments Wednesday morning, meaning he practiced Tuesday. They expected him to practice Wednesday, and I can confirm he did practice on Wednesday. I can also tell you that some of the conversations that I had Wednesday evening might suggest that not 100%. And by the time you get to Saturday, it may not make sense to run Braelin Moore out there. Now, I think there's one of two things going on here with Brian Kelly. I think it's either gamesmanship or they're trying to manage the schedule. Let me explain what I mean. I don't doubt at all that Braelin Moore practiced Tuesday, Wednesday. As a matter of fact, I've had multiple people confirm that to me outside of Brian Kelly saying it publicly there. And I don't know why he would say it publicly when, if he didn't mean it, because that could, in theory, be proved or disproved. So one would be gamesmanship, meaning he just doesn't want Florida to know what their plan is for Braelin Moore. And so he'll put it out there that we know he's probable, we'll see, with not really an intention of playing him. That's one. I don't think that's the case. The other is maybe they're trying to manage this schedule with Braelin Moore. So what I mean by that is when you look at the injury happening against Tech, they could certainly get Braelin Moore treatment all this week, and then on Saturday, shoot him up, tape it up high and tight, and say, give us what you can, big fella, against the Florida Gators, because this is a really good opponent. No, and next week you've got Southeastern, and he could take off the entire week leading up to Southeastern, not play against Southeastern, get treatment for that week, the week leading up to Ole Miss, and be ready to roll again at Ole Miss and repeat that process. Tape it up, get him ready to roll, give us what you can against Ole Miss. And then you have an open date, so you can do the same thing again. You could take that week off, you have your open date, get ready to roll the following week in Baton Rouge against South Carolina. So there's risk reward there, right? If that's the path you follow, well, then you get Braelin Moore at some capacity, 70%, 80%, whatever that number is, against Florida. And so you have to ask yourself, is a limited Braelin Moore in Tiger Stadium against Florida a better option than 100% DJ Chester? And similarly, is the risk of Braelin Moore furthering that injury and exacerbating this problem further down the line in the schedule, is it worth it to have him ready to go at whatever capacity against Florida? Now, you know my opinion on the matter. My opinion on the matter is you don't need Braelin Moore to beat Florida. Would you? And I fully understand the conversation that we've had on this show here this week. The thing that cost LSU the game against Florida a year ago was their inability to finish drives because Florida's front seven wrecked LSU. 7 sacks, 11 TFLs, 14 hurries, 20 pressures. Like, I get it. So yeah, you want your best offensive lineman out there. But similarly, as we've said, there is no Shamar James. Jack Pyburn now plays for LSU. Caleb Banks hasn't played the first 2 games. Still unclear if he's going to play this week. LJ McCray broke his foot. He's out for the season. The point being, Florida is a dramatically lessened defensive front this year than they were a year ago. And LSU should be in a position, even without Braelin Moore, to beat Florida on Saturday at home in Tiger Stadium. Is that a risk Brian Kelly's willing to take? I don't know. We'll see. I am still here as of today, still skeptical as to whether or not Braelin Moore is going to play. I don't think he will. I would prefer to see LSU give Braelin Moore this week off, and then next week give him off again against Southeastern and have him as close to 100% ready to roll against Ole Miss on the road, knowing you got to bye after that. And by the time you get to South Carolina, he could be close to, if not 100%, or as close as he'll be all year. One thing we know, whether you're a doctor or not, if you just watch sports like I do and you have your whole life, what we hear all the time from doctors about the ankle sprain is the only thing that heals it is time. So you got to give it time. Braelin Moore is way too important to this team to rush him back, risk exacerbating that problem, and then having it last and bleed even further into the season when you need him to be as close to near 100% as he could possibly be. So my preference would be that we don't see Braelin. My preference is the good Lord reaches his hand down, touches Braelin Moore's ankle, and it's magically healed, miraculously healed. That would be my preference. Sans a literal miracle, my preference would be sit Braelin Moore this week, play DJ Chester, beat Florida, sit Braelin Moore next week against Southeastern, and have him as close to 100% ready to go with really 21 days from injury to the Ole Miss game before you asked him to get out there and roll for you again. That's what I would like to see LSU do. We'll see what Brian Kelly elects to do, and certainly Braelin Moore will have a say in that conversation, as will all of the LSU doctors. And so we'll see how it all plays out. But again, Braelin Moore, probable. He practiced on Tuesday. I can confirm that he did, in fact, practice on Wednesday as well. But I think there's still some hesitation as to whether or not he's going to be ready to go on Saturday against Florida. Brian Kelly meets with reporters after practice on Thursday, then has his coaches show Thursday night. So we will get another update here before LSU and Florida take the field on Saturday night in Tiger Stadium. As we know more, we'll tell you here. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. It's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. So let's break it down. For the LSU Tigers, Berrien Brown delivered in a big way. Of course, he was awesome. Led LSU in receiving yards, had a few explosive plays in the pass game, return game as well. When the pressure was on, Berrien Brown came through with no hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, or with Brown year after year, this performance was no fluke. Berrien Brown is on a streak, and just like Berrien Brown delivered for the LSU Tigers, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday that you order. So stack it up all season, and you can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. So order this Saturday, keep the streak alive, fuel your game day. only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18. We're also brought to you by our friends at Our Lady of the Lake, Championship Health Partner of LSU Athletics. As we are fond of saying, Our Lady of the Lake and LSU, together we roar. And while I love telling you about Our Lady of the Lake, if you're watching with us here, I have on my Our Lady of the Lake officially licensed LSU cap. Beautiful hat, by the way. Appreciate the guys who've read, the folks over at Our Lady of the Lake for hooking me up. But one of the things I'd love to tell you about as well is, yes, the Championship Health Partner of LSU Athletics is so critical. Our friends at Our Lady of the Lake are embarking on this journey to secure the naming rights of the new LSU basketball arena, which is going to be such an amazing thing for LSU and for the entire community and state and region. I can't wait for that to be ratified and for that project to move forward, as I know will many LSU fans. But it's not just Our Lady of the Lake in Baton Rouge. You see, with the Franciscan Missionaries of Our Lady Health System, it's a multi-state health system that serves all of Louisiana. And this year, Our Lady of the Lake and the entire health system at FMOL have approved more than $250 million in capital expenditures investing in the future of our region's healthcare, with projects including a major ER renovation at the Regional Medical Center in Baton Rouge, new observation beds at the Livingston campus, a medical office building at St. Elizabeth campus, and a significant rejuvenation of our adult and adolescent mental health facilities. Because see, at Our Lady of the Lake, it's all about serving Louisiana. The same expert care trusted by LSU is ready when and where you need it. You can do like I do and trust Our Lady of the Lake. Our Lady of the Lake and LSU. Together, we roar. So as LSU and Florida continue to get ready for this matchup, it's two teams that have kind of been scuffling a smidge here. And I say that sort of hesitantly when we talk about LSU. With Florida, it's obvious. Florida lost to South Florida this past week. A devastating and embarrassing home loss against an in-state G5 opponent for a guy in Billy Napier who could ill afford it. Yeah, it looked like he was going to be canned a year ago. They had the fantastic finish where they beat LSU, they beat Ole Miss, they beat Florida State, they won their bowl game, they win 4 in a row to end the season, they finished with 8 wins. Billy Napier saves his job. Lots of expectations this year with DJ Lagway, and right at the shoot, boom, they lose to South Florida, one you couldn't afford to lose, and now they're right back to where they were before that LSU win a season ago. But on the flip side of it, LSU is 2-0. They're ranked 3rd in the country. They have arguably the most impressive win in the country already this year, going on the road week 1 and beating Clemson the manner in which they did. But a sluggish performance against Louisiana Tech has some people maybe a little hesitant. But Brian Kelly said this game this weekend presents a great opportunity for the LSU team and program.
Our guys are excited about it. They didn't feel like they played to their standards last week. So now it's an opportunity for them to be the elite performers that we believe they are. It will be exciting at Tiger Stadium on Saturday. Our guys know there's a great challenge in front of them. And, their want and desire is to go 1-0. And that means this week their preparation has to be on point, focused.
Meanwhile, for Billy Napier, he realizes for his team, this is a great opportunity for them after an embarrassing loss Saturday on their home field.
Big-time challenge going into Baton Rouge Saturday. And I think as a competitor, these are the opportunities that you dream of. And obviously, we're right in the middle of the prep here. But in general here, we're excited about all that comes with this. And got a ton of respect for LSU, Coach Kelly, his staff, and their team. And this will require us to be at our best. Keep it simple. That's where we're at right now.
It's so interesting, too, when you look at these two teams and these two coaches, because for as long as Brian Kelly's at LSU and Billy Napier's at Florida, they are going to be linked because, of course, Napier stumped and lobbied hard for the LSU job. Ultimately, they hired Brian Kelly, and Napier got the Florida job. So these two are following a parallel path in their career timeline with their current schools. And right now, I think it's safe to say that Brian Kelly's had the upper hand over Billy Napier in Gainesville. Kelly's won an SEC West title. He's had a Heisman Trophy winner. He's had a couple of 10-win seasons. Yes, the expectation is win the national championship. They haven't got there yet. I think that is a realistic expectation this season for LSU, or at least a realistic possibility for LSU this season, where as Florida doesn't feel close. But after Billy Napier exchanged the niceties on the SEC coaches teleconference, he was a little testy in his meeting with the media. As a matter of fact, there were several times where he just interrupted reporters flatly in their questions. And one was asking, if after the loss against South Florida, it's time to go back to the drawing board and start from square one. And Billy Napier didn't like that question very much.
Everything that's been built here didn't all of a sudden just disappear, okay? We didn't perform to the best of our ability. Ball didn't bounce our way on a few things. But there's been a ton of investment put into the people on our team within the organization, and those things still exist. If you've been doing this the right way, you've developed some intangibles to prepare for these type of moments. And sometimes the game gives you what you need. It gives you exactly what you need. This can galvanize your group. I think when adversity hits, you need to elevate, and you definitely don't need to shrink back. So we're going to double down on who we are and try to go play a brand of football that we all can be proud of.
Has the investment, though, actually been built properly? And this is the question that Florida, the administration there is going to have to ask itself. So again, the year Brian Kelly showed up in Baton Rouge, same year Billy Napier showed up in Gainesville. They went 6-6 that year, lost the Las Vegas Bowl, and finished 6-7. They were 3-5 in the SEC. A year later, they went 5-7 overall. Again, 3-5 in the SEC. They were not bowl eligible. Then last year, they go 4-4 in the league. But the way they finish, as we just mentioned, they go 7-5 and they win the Gasparilla Bowl to finish 8-5. But a 6-6 regular season, a 5-7 regular season, a 7-5 regular season, and this year through 2 games, they're 1-1. So if you look at Billy Napier's record through 3+ seasons at Florida, he's 20-20 through 40 games, and he's 10-14 in the SEC. His conference record 3-5, 3-5, 4-4. I don't know that I can actually get on board with Billy Napier saying everything, trying to tout everything that's been built there. And I do understand the adage that it takes time and you have to give someone to get their players and their culture. The difference is in this day and age in college football, there's never been a faster rush to judgment because of NIL and the transfer portal. You can accelerate building a program because of NIL and the transfer portal. You can go get immediate help instead of waiting 3 years for 3 recruiting cycles to build on top of each other. Kirk Cignetti went to Indiana, brought a bunch of dudes from James Madison, won 11 games and made the playoff. SMU was an American Athletic Conference team. They're by their way into the ACC, and just like that, boom, they're in the college football playoff. It's just not the same as it was where you had to take time to build the way that you used to. You can be competitive immediately if you make the right player personnel decisions and you can coach your team. That was a talented Florida team a year ago that was not very good for 2 months of the season. This is a team that lost a good bit from a year ago, but clearly still has some deficiencies that Billy Napier and this staff are trying to get over. Now, meanwhile, Brian Kelly was asked about the slow start offensively, which I pushed back a little bit on. We sort of lauded LSU's offense after the Clemson game. They outgained Clemson. They put up 360 yards of offense against a good Clemson defense. They were robbed of a touchdown that Barry and Brown scored, but for a crazy ruling. If that touchdown stands, you're talking about right at about 400 yards of offense, and you scored 24 in the ball game. Yet another red zone possession where you settled for a field goal. In any event, I don't think any of us, Garrett Nussmeier was the National Player of the Week after the Clemson game. So I don't think many of us were sitting here poo-pooing the offense, but it was sluggish against Louisiana Tech. So how about getting over the slow start?
We lost some offensive linemen. We're certainly building a relationship with our receivers. This is what it looks like as you build continuity within your offensive structure. So we're not pressing any alarm bells. It's early in the season. Will we get better? Do we need to get better? Absolutely, Edgar. But this is a process that we were committed to and knew that there was going to be some development that would need to take place. I know the splash is 50, 60 points a game, but to me, at the end of the day, is winning football games. And we're 2-0, and we know we need to play better offensively, but we all knew that this was going to be a process for us.
Well, they got to finish in the red zone. We've talked about that plenty. it looks like they won't have Trey'Dez Green. And Brian Kelly talked about the effect of not having Trey'Dez in the red
I
zone.
think you have to have plans, right, for him and not having him. But, each week is a different look in the red zone. Defenses change dramatically as you get into the shorter field. So Florida plays a little bit different than Louisiana Tech played and actually different than Clemson. So you carry a package that is specific to the high percentages of what you're going to see down there. So each and every week you have to be flexible. There are some weeks that Trey'Dez is going to get a lot of targets down there, and there's some that he may not get any because he's bracketed. So I think going in, when you're examining your red zone, as much as you'd just like to throw a fade out there, sometimes you don't get those opportunities.
We'll see how LSU adjusts Saturday night in Tiger Stadium, provided they get the red zone opportunity. I will remind you that LSU, while they moved the ball up and down the field last year against Florida, they only had one red zone opportunity. They were 1 for 1. It was a field goal at the start of the third quarter after the touchdown to C.J. Daniels was taken off the board because of an offensive pass interference. Hopefully, many more opportunities and many more conversions for LSU Saturday night against the Gators. Today's show is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else as of August 2025. From footwork to breath work, athletes sweat all the details, and Mazda brings the same intention to how they craft every model. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but. From smooth handling to intuitive controls, with all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. And we're also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. The other injury news that we're kind of following here is Solomon Thomas, the 5-star freshman offensive lineman who Brian Kelly told me in fall camp broke his 5th metatarsal, a bone in his foot. And so he missed all of fall camp, but there is progress there for the 5-star offensive lineman.
He's making good progress. He's out of the boot. He's moving around. I think he's probably, a few weeks from, being in a position where he can take reps, but I think that's still down the road a bit. But again, I think he's been good in terms of making sure that he's doing everything necessary to get himself physically ready to compete.
The disappointing part about that, it's good news that he's making progress. That goes without saying. The disappointing part is, if Solomon Thomas is still a couple of weeks away from being ready to get back on the field and start to get into shape, you got to think about what then. Let's say in 2 weeks he gets back on the field. Okay. Well, in 2 weeks, that would be your open week heading into the home game against South Carolina. Okay. Well, how long does it take realistically for Solomon Thomas to get back into football shape where he can actually give you something? Maybe a couple of more weeks. If you just look at the acclimatization period that LSU went through in fall camp, you'd have to figure 3 weeks to get him really ramped up into that playing shape. Well, then all of a sudden you're talking about the end of October. So what opportunity realistically is there for Solomon Thomas this year, unless if there's some kind of injury? And if there is he your best option, having missed so much time? Probably not. It certainly seems like Solomon Thomas is steamrolling toward a red shirt this year. And it will be fascinating to see what happens with this offensive line in the offseason. We know Josh Thompson will be out of eligibility. Braelin Moore could come back for another year, but might well head off to the NFL. Your tackles, Adams and Davis, most certainly will be back next year. Paul Mabenga, DJ Chester, Karius Kern could certainly all return and be in line to play. And then you figure a guy like Solomon Thomas, who you could shoehorn in there somewhere along the offensive line as well. And maybe Cohen Eccles is your starting center next year, depending on what happens with Braelin Moore and DJ Chester. So the good news about the LSU offensive line is there's no shortage of talent, options, and experience depth as well. And you can always hit the portal if you have to. But Solomon Thomas out of the boot, which is the great news, but still a little ways away before he's actually out there competing for LSU. And this is also going to be an interesting weekend because you're going to see a guy like Jack Pyburn and Jakeem Jackson playing against their former team, something Billy Napier didn't want to talk much about.
Yeah, nothing personal. We don't talk a lot about it a lot. We got a lot of respect for all these guys, and we've had a number of those scenarios in the past. So, our guys will be ready to play regardless of who's on the other side.
It's a two-way street, NIL and the transfer portal. As we say, the portal giveth and the portal taketh away. For Billy Napier and the Gators, Jack Pyburn was a guy who grew up loving the Gators, played for the Gators, but now he'll be going against the Gators on Saturday night in Tiger Stadium. I'm certainly glad to see him in the purple and gold. All right, on Friday's episode of Locked on LSU, we are going to give you our crossover episode. I'm very excited for that. Brandon Olson and I of Locked on Gators have been in contact, and I'm really interested to get a finger on the pulse of a few things. Naturally, the vibe in Gainesville this week, which from the fans is objectively going to be very poor, but I would assume that in the locker room around the team, the spirits are going to be good. I know that Florida lost to South Florida. But there's so many instances of teams that lose a game like that, and when their back's against the wall, they're embarrassed and humiliated and humbled. They bounce back in a big way. I've said it many times this week, 2017. LSU lost to Troy. A week later, they went to Gainesville and won 17-16. I think that's the type of game Florida would need to unfold to have a chance to win it. But I also think talented team capable of winning, LSU's got to play their best. I suspect they will. All right, that's going to do it for us here on today's episode of Locked on LSU. And before we get out of here, I want to remind you that it's an amazing time. It's a big moment for Locked On. College football fans, Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation, a longtime two-time AP Coach of the Year, Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. Okay, that's going to do it for us. Hey, thanks so much for listening. If you're on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. And let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you here every single day for Locked on LSU, your team every day.